All right, so are you ready to dive deep?
Always. What are we exploring today?
Today, we're taking a trip to the Raw Awakened subreddit. We're going to see what we can learn about, well, spiritual awakening.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. Though I have to admit, when I hear spiritual awakening, I do think of, meditation, retreats, and all. What's the vibe of this subreddit?
Honestly, it's way more diverse than you might think.
Huh?
I mean, this subreddit has been around since 2012.
Wow, 2012. That's like over a decade of posts.
Exactly. And over a million users, too, so it's a pretty massive community with a huge range of experiences. There's everything from these really deep personal reflections, people sharing these aha moments they've had.
I can imagine, like, I finally get it kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But then you also have people who are clearly in the thick of it, like almost panicking, asking, what is happening to me? It's kind of wild.
Wow, that's quite a spectrum. I guess that just shows you how individual this whole spiritual awakening thing can be, huh?
Right. And another thing that really stood out to me was how much the post titles themselves tell a story. Like some are pretty straightforward, like letting go of the past, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. What about the less straightforward ones?
Well, then you get titles like A Madman Who Was High as a Kite.
Oh, that one I gotta know more about.
I know, right? There's a real sense of like playful questioning in a lot of these posts. It's like
Mhm.
even when they're dealing with some really heavy existential stuff, there's still room for humor.
I like that. Makes it feel more approachable,
Yeah,
not so serious.
totally. But speaking of serious, one post that really got me thinking was called The Problem with Accepting What Is.
That's an interesting one. I mean, accepting what is like a cornerstone of a lot of spiritual traditions. What's the problem, according to this post?
Well, the author makes this really interesting point about how that whole accept what is thing, while well-intentioned, can kind of ignore the very real struggles that people are facing.
Oh, I see. Like telling someone to just accept a difficult situation when they haven't even had a fair shot at changing it.
Exactly. It's almost like saying, just be content with whatever hand you've been dealt, without acknowledging that some people are dealt a much tougher hand than others.
Right. It's about recognizing that privilege plays a huge role in all of this. Like telling someone to just accept poverty or discrimination, that's not helpful. That's just perpetuating the problem.
It makes you question, when is acceptance actually empowering, and when is it just a way to avoid rocking the boat?
Totally. It's like that saying, prayer without action is just wishful thinking. Sometimes you got to pair that acceptance with some good old-fashioned effort to make things better.
100%. Now, shifting gears a bit, one user described this really wild experience they had where they felt like everyone around them was mirroring their emotions.
Whoa, like if they were feeling happy, people around them seemed happy too.
Yeah, exactly. Or if they were angry, suddenly everyone around them seemed angry. It really freaked them out, actually. It made them question this whole idea of interconnectedness.
Now, that's a mind bender. I mean, it makes you wonder, is it just our perception or is there something more to it? Could we be more energetically sensitive than we realize?
Right. Like, what if our own energy really does impact the people around us in ways that we don't even fully understand? It's a trippy thought.
It really is. And it kind of ups the stakes on being mindful of what kind of energy we're putting out into the world, doesn't it?
No doubt. Speaking of putting things out there,
Hmm.
there was this one post that really highlighted the potential downsides of seeking spiritual awakening, particularly through substances. This person described this really intense experience on psychedelics.
Uh,
I think they took it as some kind of profound awakening.
oh boy, I can already see where this is going.
Yeah, well, it sounds like they got a little ahead of themselves and tried to, like,
Oh, right.
force their girlfriend to have the same experience.
Oh no, never a good idea. Like trying to force a flower to bloom?
Yeah, you gotta let those things unfold naturally. Each person has their own path, their own timing.
Exactly. Forcing it never ends well. But hey, remember that post title I mentioned earlier? A madman who was high as a kite. I'm really curious about that one. What was that all about?
Oh, right. That one was interesting. It wasn't actually about drugs, though, despite the title. It was more about this user's struggle to reconcile their understanding of the universe with, well, with the universe itself. Like, the more they learned about cosmology and physics and all that, the more it felt like the universe was just kind of nonsensical.
I could see that. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Exactly. And this user was struggling with that. Like, if the universe was created by some kind of intelligence, it must have been one that was, well, a little off-kilter. Hence the madman analogy.
Makes you wonder if maybe embracing the absurdity of it all is part of the journey, huh? Totally. Like maybe we're not supposed to have it all figured out. Maybe the point is to let go of our need for logic and just be in awe of the mystery of it all.
I like that. Surrender to the unknown.
Yeah.
Speaking of letting go, that seemed to be a big theme overall, right?
Huh.
Especially letting go of the past. There were a lot of posts about that.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes sense, right? I mean, our past experiences shape us, but they can also hold us back. A lot of people on this subreddit seem to be grappling with that tension.
It's one thing to say let go of the past,
Yeah.
but actually doing it, that's a whole other story. Like, what happens to our sense of self if we let go of all the things that we thought defined us?
Right. It can be scary. But what if letting go isn't about erasing who we were, but rather creating space for a more authentic, more expansive version of ourselves to emerge? Like clearing out the clutter in our minds to make room for something new.
I love that analogy. So how do we actually do that? Clear out the clutter, I mean.
Well, a lot of people on the subreddit talked about something called shadow work.
Ah, yes. Shadow work. That term always sounds a bit intimidating, to be honest. What exactly does it entail?
Basically, it's the practice of facing those parts of ourselves that we tend to hide from. The parts we deem unacceptable or negative, our fears, our insecurities, our anger, all that stuff we'd rather not acknowledge.
It sounds kind of scary, like intentionally digging into our own darkness. Why would we do that?
It's not about dwelling in the darkness, but rather about bringing those shadow parts into the light of awareness so we can understand them, heal them, and integrate them. Often, those hidden parts are actually running the show behind the scenes, influencing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in ways we don't even realize.
So by facing those shadow parts, we can actually reclaim our power.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? One user described how after they had this profound awakening experience, shadow work actually became easier. It was like once they'd glimpsed the interconnectedness of all things, their own personal darkness didn't seem so scary anymore.
It's like once you've seen the vastness of the universe, your own little shadow seems a lot less intimidating.
Exactly. It's all relative, right? But speaking of interconnectedness, we should circle back to that post about the user who felt like everyone was mirroring their emotions.
Oh yeah, that one was wild.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder about the nature of reality, doesn't it? Like, what if we're all way more energetically connected than we realize?
Right. What if our thoughts and emotions really do have a ripple effect on the world around us?
It's both exciting and a little daunting to think that we might be that powerful.
It definitely calls for a greater level of self-awareness, wouldn't you say? Like, if we're all part of this web of life, then even our smallest actions, our thoughts, our emotions have the potential to impact the whole.
It makes you want to be more mindful of the energy you're putting out there, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And, it also makes you wonder, what if these individual awakening experiences that people are having are actually part of a much larger collective awakening that's happening on a global scale?
Whoa, like we're all waking up together. That's a powerful thought.
It is, isn't it? Now, remember that post title, Someone Unplugged My Wifey?
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm still curious about that one. How does losing internet access relate to spiritual awakening?
Well, think about that feeling of being disconnected, of searching for a signal. It's a metaphor for that feeling of spiritual disconnection that a lot of people experience before having an awakening.
So it's like we're all searching for that wifey signal, that connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And sometimes that search can be really frustrating, confusing, even a little maddening. But it's often in those moments of feeling lost and questioning everything that we're most open to new insights and perspectives.
It's like when you've hit that wall of frustration, that's when you're finally willing to ask for directions.
Precisely. And sometimes those directions come from the most unexpected places. Like, do you remember that post titled, Other People's Failed Expectations of You Are a Measure of Their Inability to Accept the Way Things Appear to Be, Not Yours?
Wow, yeah, that was a mouthful. But also super insightful.
Right. It's a great reminder that other people's opinions of us often say more about them than they do about us. And that true freedom comes from living in alignment with our own values and aspirations, not someone else's.
Which is so important, especially on a path like this, where it's easy to get caught up in seeking validation from others.
Absolutely. That's why it's crucial to cultivate a strong sense of inner knowing, to trust our own intuition even when it goes against the grain.
Because ultimately, we are our own best guides, right?
Exactly. And speaking of guidance, one user posted a single but incredibly poignant line, I'm lost.
It's amazing how such a simple statement can carry so much weight. I think we've all felt that way at some point, especially on a journey like this.
It's a universal human experience, isn't it? That feeling of being lost. But there's also a certain beauty in it because it means we're no longer confined by the limitations of our old maps. We're free to explore, to discover, to create our own path.
To find our own way home. I love that.
It really is about embracing the unknown, isn't it? And speaking of which, there was this one post, the title was something like Psychosis or Synchronicity. And the user was describing all these moments where things just seemed to line up perfectly with their thoughts, like things people said or events that happened, even the thoughts that felt a little, out there.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Like they weren't sure if it was just them or if something bigger was going on.
Exactly. It really makes you question what's real and what's not, like, is it just coincidence or is there something more to it, some kind of deeper connection we haven't quite grasped yet?
Right. Like how much of what we perceive as reality is actually shaped by our own internal state.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if maybe our minds are capable of so much more than we give them credit for. What if those out there thoughts are actually glimpses into a different level of reality?
Whoa. It's like we're always trying to fit things into neat little boxes, psychic or psychotic, when maybe the truth is a lot more fluid than that.
Totally. Our current understanding of the world is so limited, And experiences like this, they challenge those limitations. They make us realize there's still so much we don't know.
It's good to be reminded of that sometimes. It
Mm.
keeps us humble. Speaking of humbling, one topic that came up a lot was money. Specifically, that whole idea of resolving limiting beliefs around money.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. So many people seem to struggle with this idea that spirituality and abundance are somehow at odds with each other.
Right. It's like this weird dichotomy, like you have to choose between spiritual growth and financial well-being.
Exactly. But what if that belief is the real problem? What if by believing that money is somehow unspiritual, we're actually blocking the flow of abundance in all areas of our lives?
It's like we've internalized this scarcity mindset, and it's affecting not just our finances, but our relationships, our creativity, our overall well-being.
Right. And the truth is, money is just energy. It's a tool that can be used for good or for bad. It's all about our relationship with it.
So it's less about chasing after money and more about shifting our mindset around money, right?
Hmm.
Cultivating a sense of gratitude and trust in the abundance of the universe.
Exactly. And that abundance can manifest in so many different ways, not just financially. It's about living a life that's full and meaningful and aligned with our values.
I love that. It's about so much more than just dollar signs.
Exactly. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground today, from shadow work to synchronicity to the nature of reality itself. It's been quite a journey through the world of our awakened.
It really has. I mean, we've only scratched the surface, but it's been so fascinating to see how this online community is grappling with these big questions about life, the universe, and everything.
It's inspiring, really. It shows you that even in this digital age, people are still searching for meaning, for connection, for something bigger than themselves.
Absolutely. And that's what's so cool about a subreddit like this. It provides a space for people to share their experiences, ask for support, and connect with others who are on a similar path.
Totally. Because even though the journey of awakening can feel very personal, we're ultimately all in this together. And that's a beautiful thing.
Beautifully said. So to all of you listening out there, we'd love to hear from you. If you were to post on Raw Lincoln today, what question, what reflection, what aha moment would you share? What's resonating with you after taking this deep dive? Let us know. And until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.